Welcome to my fantasy review. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, what I'm going to do is a review of The Hobbit, the first of 3 movies Peter Jackson is going to be making. Before I start, let me say I am a fan of Tolkien, but I'm more also of a sci-fi person, so I'm not probably what you'd call one of his fanatical fans. If there's flaw in the movie, or there's flaws in the movie, I will point it out. But on the other hand, I will defend decisions he's made because I don't think that a movie has to be exactly like the book. So first, let me talk about something I really did enjoy about the movie. First, Oakenshield, the leader of the dwarves. In the book, let's face it, he's not a very efficient leader. He's kind of greedy, self-centered. And spoiler alert, he goes downhill from there. If you read the book, you know he goes really downhill from there, becoming slightly paranoid. He becomes aggressive towards almost everybody, including the Hobbit, who he threatens to kill near the end of the book. In this one, the first part, the first movie of the trilogy, he actually comes across as noble, intelligent, effective, not really greedy as much as trying to give his people a home back. And this will make, of course, the spiral of paranoia and greed and his trauma spiral all the more interesting and tragic when it does happen in the later films. If you don't know what trauma or tantrum spiral is, you haven't been playing enough Dwarf Fortress. Now let's talk about something I'm going to nitpick a little bit. The beginning of the film, the prologue or the prelogue, however you want to do it, is Bilbo Baggins narrating not only about hobbits but also about the coming of Smaug and how the dwarves were kicked out of their mountain civilization. It's not just a city. Let's face it, that thing's huge. It's their civilization. I think that the movie should have started really with Bilbo Baggins as a young hobbit smoking in front of his house with Gandalf showing up. Those scenes were beautiful. I'm not saying they weren't beautiful, and I'm not saying they could not be used. I think they could have been inserted into the dwarf party when the dwarves are first in the Hobbit's home. They could have had the full song from the book with those scenes inserted in between close-ups of the dwarves singing, showing not only the emotional resonance of those memories, but showing the memories themselves, probably faded out a little bit. You know, the color faded a little bit. The movie is fairly long to begin with, and I think there is a lot of what I will call padding or filler, even though technically it's not filler. They're not trying to stretch it out for its own sake. I think they're adding elements in the story that could have been done either differently or not even added. For example, the Pale Orc, a guy they mentioned once, I believe, near the end of the novel, dealing with the Battle of the Five Armies. So I don't think they needed him. I think Oakenshield had enough of a journey before they needed to bring an orc. His villains are his own emotions, and his villains is his need to actually go back and get his homeland, even if it might come across also as a little bit of revenge. I mean, his people have been resettled in other areas. They've continued their life. He doesn't have to do this, but he feels the need to, and it really comes down to, is he doing it out of revenge, or is he doing it because he wants to give his people their home back, their heritage back? And I think that's a fight within him, and I think that's a good enough fight. A character can have conflict without having a conflict with other character. Now, the thing that really I think disappointed me about the movie, and once again, it's a beautiful movie, it's a great movie, I love the movie, but it wasn't an epic legend movie. It wasn't a legendary movie. Because I think The Hobbit's about the Hobbit. Let me explain. Many of the scenes dealt with the return of the Dark Lord and the Ring. And I have nothing against those actors. Christopher Lee is one of my favorites, and they do bring power to those characters, even though some of those characters are not in the book. Now, many of the scenes we saw that are added were scenes that happened at the same time. They're not mentioned in the book, but Gandalf does talk about many of them in the scene with the Council and the Fellowship of the Rings in the book, not in the movie, of course. So these events do happen, but they're just not mentioned until later on. The problem I have with them is that I think they put too much weight on the ring, which is more of a background. Now, once again, this book introduce us to the ring. And the ring's very important. It does get us into the trilogy, The Lord of the Rings, which is actually not meant to be a trilogy. It's meant to be one book. But I believe The Hobbit itself, while it does give you those events, explains the background and foundation, was meant to focus on the Hobbit and the journey. About getting out of your house, about getting out of the box, about getting out of the comfort zone. It doesn't matter how small you are and how big your house is, if you're not expanding outside, if you're not learning and living and loving, which does sound a little silly, then you're still in a little box. It's for children, but also the children at heart, the adults who have never actually left their room, or the basement of their parents, or whatever, however you want to say it, whatever metaphor you want to use. And I believe while the ring is an essential part of elven history and part of the overall setting of many of the histories in the past and the future stories after the ring, the War of the Rings, I believe its place in this novel is actually tiny. It is not the main character. The Hobbit is the title of the character, the title of the book. He is the character. It is his story. And I believe too much weight. While weight was put on the Hobbit, I mean, he came across beautifully. The actor who played him came across. He's developed, his character developed and all that, and it's going to develop in the next two films. I believe an equal amount of weight was put in the backstory, which should have stayed, frankly, in the background, because that's why it's a backstory, at least to me. These are my opinions. These are my honest opinions. I won't say they're humble opinions because I don't feel very humble most of the time. I can be ignorant and incapable of pronouncing certain words as anybody else. But I do believe that Peter Jackson might have stumbled a little bit with this one. I think he's a brilliant director. I think he knows The Hobbit inside out, just like he knows Tolkien. But I think in a little bit, he wanted to put more weight on the ring and make this into a prologue for the other trilogy. And I think, to be honest, this is a standalone. This is not a prologue or a please respond or an ending chapter or a conclusion. This is a story all by itself. And the fact that it also got PG-13 rating suggests that they're making it a little too dark. This is the cupcake of films, guys. This is that little cupcake your friends get to you on your birthday at work. The one that, it's small and cute and not filling at all. Jackson is making it into a wedding cake. A Halloween-themed wedding cake with zombies on the top with the zombie bride and the zombie groom and lots of frosting, and the fact that this is going to change the rest of your life. Not that birthdays don't change your life, but they happen a little more often than weddings, I hope anyway. And, oh, that's an interesting sound. And I think The Hobbit was just a little too heavy, a little too dark. And while, once again, I think it's a good film, I think the ending, the three films together will be good. They'll be wonderful. I'll buy them all and get all the extras. They're not going to be at the same magnitude or same level as The Lord of the Rings or the original Star Wars trilogy or a few other films that I really like Dune and stuff like that. His vision's there. His intelligence is there. He doesn't talk down to the audience. He wants to feed the fanboys and the fangirls what they want. But I do think that it was padded. It could have probably been done in 2 hours. Or it could have been done the same length, but they could have focused more really on the story, the setting, the art. And once again, I'm not saying he didn't, but I think a weight was put too much on other events, other settings, and other characters. Okay? Thank you very much for listening. I would love reactions in the comments if you have any, guys. I want to know your ideas, if any of you have seen the film, and what you think about it, good, bad, in between. Is it good? Is it great? Will it become a legend? Okay? Thank you very much. Have a good day.